Hello, everyone. I'm here today with a good friend and a guest on the show named Stephen V. Richardson. I think that V stands for victory. I'm not sure, but he
Victor,
is
close.
he is an author. He is an expert on solar, and that's why I brought him on today because I'm shopping for solar for my little house out in the country, and I heard Stephen knew a lot about this. He goes, "Well, did you know I wrote a book about it?" What? He sent me the book. I read it. I invited him onto the show today to help you. To anybody out there, this show is going to be for Stephen. You tell me, who is this for? Who should be listening to our conversation today?
Well, it's definitely specifically written for people in California, even though it's applicable to people all over the country. You and I both happen to be in Northern California, so we call that PG&E territory. So it's really for homeowners who are thinking about overall home finances and realize that this bill that they receive and have to pay every single month, that there's some options on possibly saving money by paying less. So the target are homeowners in Northern California and the PG&E territory, but also people who are open to getting information about solar and battery, but who would prefer not to talk directly to a salesperson because most of us have had pretty negative experiences, whether it's someone knocking on the door or whatever nonsense we see on social media. So I really saw a void out there, and I have done a lot of research with regards to books that are available specifically for homeowners, answering questions that people have, but they don't get the answers until they're sitting in front of somebody at their kitchen table, and there's a lot of pressure and uncomfortableness about that. So that's really why I wrote this book and wrote it. It wasn't because I wanted to. I really believe that I had to.
Well, well, I can't think of anybody who doesn't care about their home finances. So this would be like for everyone, right? Oh, I'm so rich, I don't even care what I pay to PG&E. Those people we can exclude. So go ahead, turn it off, get out. Everybody else, you're in this conversation. Uh, and yeah, and it's interesting because I've been thinking about it for a long time and had that experience that you talked about, somebody knocking on my front door and wasn't the best experience, I would say, if I could be nice about it. I felt rushed, I felt pressured, and looking at somebody honestly who looked like they didn't know what they were talking about. And so I'm glad that you popped up and mentioned that you were had some expertise in this area because I don't want to talk to somebody who's knocking on doors and trying to go for a close on me. I'm just not that kind of person. Uh, so let's get back to your why. Everybody wants to know why. Are you really passionate about this? How'd you get into this? Why do you care so much, Steven Richardson? Give me your why.
Well, my why regarding my position as a licensed solar professional. What's your that's a pretty
Yeah.
open-ended question, so I
Well,
want to make sure I'm
no,
answering the right one.
it's no. You talk about writing the book. Like I had to write it, but why did you have to write this book?
I I think I might have shared this with you before when we talked about possibly, allowing me to be on your platform, and thank you for that. Was two basic premises. I believe that every family, every homeowner is looking to better provide for their family. That's pretty much a given. And I also believe that most homeowners are open to at least getting information about how they could possibly save a lot of money off their energy costs by upgrading to solar. But once again, they don't necessarily want to talk to a sales professional. They definitely want to talk to a door knocking, as I call them, t-shirt wearing door knocking solar bro. But the information is not out there. And I'm sure we'll get into it later on, but just basic questions. I think that if people understood what they were walking into, what the overall process is, what happens when you actually sit down or have a conversation directly with a hopefully licensed solar professional, solar and battery professional, what's the process? What questions are they going to ask? What's the purpose of them? If it does happen, what's the next step? What's going on with all the contracts and all the wording and, just the overall process, how long it takes, all those questions that they do get answered eventually. I believe that if there's something out there that people can, at their own pace, at their own time, go through and get the information, they'll feel comfortable enough to at least have a conversation when the time is right. My goal, you and I know that I've been a full-time entrepreneur for over 20 years. My challenge for people is simply get enough information to make an educated decision on whether or not it makes sense. And if it does, great. If it doesn't, great. That's my perspective. I am a proud ambassador of this industry, but I'm not normal. I hope in a good way uh, regarding I don't behave or think or talk or something even believe what a lot and possibly most people in my profession think and believe and behave. And I think that's okay. I think there's a path for all of us. And I thought this book was necessary, and I hope people can benefit from it, whether or not they ever talk to me or not.
Well, and I know some people who are experts in an area don't want to write a book because they don't want to give away all their secrets. But I actually found in reading your book, you give away everybody else's secrets. You tell me why are they pressuring to do a close on the first call and these things because they aren't taking the same approach that you are. So, and I've always appreciated working with you. You've helped me in a lot of different areas of my life. Let's get into some of the nitty gritty. People say, okay, you got a book. I might want to read it, but let's start with some of the misconceptions. I had a lot, and there's probably a whole long list, but give me some of the top ones, biggest misconceptions people have about putting solar up on the roof.
The biggest initial misconception, now that you ask me, that's a good question, is they don't appreciate or really understand where they are right now. You and I have the privilege of talking to a lot of various groups, individuals, and organizations. You do a lot more on the corporate side. I do a lot of things in the trenches, and I also do some speaking at high schools. And a lot of times when we're talking, I'm talking to a group of maybe 100 plus eighth graders in about a week. And we're going to talk about a range of topics, but one of them is going to be goal achievement. And one thing I tell them is if you're going to go somewhere, it's nice to know where you are, and it's a good idea to know where you're going. That's a good, those two pieces of information are a good starting point. And when I say most homeowners don't understand where they don't appreciate that, especially, Northern California, PG&E territory, but I would guess that 95% of homeowners who do not already have solar and battery are already in what is called a power purchase agreement with the utility company. They don't think about it that way, but that's what it is. They didn't really get a choice of who their energy provider is. They were focused on the house, which is important, and they signed a document and they said, okay, when you turn your switches on, these guys are going to provide it for you. They're going to send you a bill. You pay them. That's good to go. But from a structure standpoint, 95% of homeowners, that's just my own personal guess, 95% of homeowners have a power purchase agreement with the utility company already. And when you look at what that means, they charge whatever they want, you have to pay it, and their rates go up every single year. I won't start going down the PG&E rabbit hole yet unless you ask me about it. Most people have their opinions about their utility company, whoever it is. But that's really the first misconception is what's going on. They think it's a huge switch that they have to make a huge decision. But it's not really the case. It's basically being given an option of possibly switching from one power purchase agreement provider to another. Now, of course, there are
Hmm.
different ways that you can, make that happen with regards to ownership and paying for it. But that's really the first misconception is where their situation is right now and where it's going. That's the
Yeah.
other big piece where it's going.
So like with my cell phone, I got a choice. I go with Verizon, I go with AT&T, T-Mobile, like there's different providers and
Yep.
you have this agreement, right? Wouldn't it be great if there was a rival energy company that I could go, it'd probably help the rates stay reasonable, wouldn't it?
They're out there. They're out there. It's just most people don't know about it. It's one of those not hidden or secret bills. It's just one of those bills that comes every single month. You don't even think about it. Most people don't even look at it to see, regardless of what it is. Some people are on auto pay, but also what's in the bill is also something that most people haven't taken the chance to really see what they're paying for every single month.
Yeah, you're right. I agree. I pay mine. It's about the same every month, and then occasionally I get these big surprises. I'm like, "What the heck happened? Jane, did you leave on the?" I'm like, I don't know. I don't investigate it too much. I just pay it because I have to.
Right.
So, okay. So that's a big misconception. Any others that hovering in the list here? Other things that people think they know, but it's not really the truth.
Well, part of it is just all of the information that they receive. Check your source. Is
Mm-hmm.
it coming from, and once again, I am a proud ambassador of my industry, of my profession, but the majority of information that people receive is coming from one of two places. A complete stranger who happens to knock on the door that you happen to answer, and that person typically is not from your neighborhood, oftentimes not from your state. They're not even licensed solar professionals. They are what we call setters, where they just come in, they get paid a certain amount to get those appointments, and they bring in their one call closer to come in and do what they do. So they say a lot of things, especially initially, to even get you to talk to them. I am not a fan of not being truthful. So even if you walk into a neighborhood and say, we're part of this program, we're part of a government program, we're working with a utility company to work on something, or we have a certain number, it's all those things. It's not necessary to lie. The solar and battery value proposition is strong enough that either it makes sense or it doesn't. I want people just to tell the truth. So part of it is they're getting the information from the door knockers, and I haven't done door knocking yet, but I might need to do that just because I want to get in. I want to be able to, connect with more people. But I want to do it in a much more ethical way, or the internet. And we won't start talking about the internet, social media, but once again, most of check my words carefully. Most of the information I see out there about solar is either misleading or incorrect.
Hmm.
I think that's very unfortunate. So I just that's the biggest misconception is the information that people are receiving. They're starting from a point of it's just a little bit shady, or something's going on, or something doesn't feel right, and their
Uh,
their instincts are right
so
on
many
right on
times. And
track.
I hate feeling tricked. I don't like gimmicks. People start one way and end up suddenly you're in this different conversation. And my dad taught me a couple of things. First was ask people, so how do you make your money? That's always a great that gets them going. And the other, my dad told me though, was it's not always about the price tag; it's about the value. Right? It's about
Absolutely.
what you get for that. So let's talk about the value proposition. What is? Give me the elevator pitch, and then maybe go deeper if you want to. But what is the real value of looking at solar for my energy?
Well, I do believe that words are important, and I'm not a huge fan of the word pitch just because I just don't have a good feeling about that. What I like to have casual conversations, zero pressure, zero obligation. And once again, if things make sense, great. If they don't, great. So the value proposition is very simple. Starting off with the original premise of they're already in a power purchase agreement with the utility company. That's the first step. They're paying a certain amount. Those rates, I don't know of a utility company in the United States that hasn't raised their rates every single year. And if you use a conservative number, and especially your favorite AI tool, you can calculate not only how much you're paying now, but how much you're going to be paying over the next 25 years. That's a good base point to start with. This is how much I'm already committed to paying over the next 25 years if I do nothing. And doing nothing is absolutely fine. But it's nice to know what you're doing for you and your family. So the first point, the starting point is understanding where you are. Now, if you really want an accurate number, you should go back 12 months of utility bills. Most people have access to it online, PDFs, probably takes about 5, 8 minutes to pull up your last 12 utility bills. Some people are old school and still get in the mail. You just go to wherever you're putting them in the folder and invest the time, not for any solar professional, definitely not for me, but for you and your family to understand on the map, you are here. Where are you? So how much they're paying? They're already paying a certain amount. If you do look at what PG&E has done, and you know this as well as I do, they've raised their rates between January 2024 and December 2025. They raised the rates only 6 times.
6 times. Oh my
Six
God. I
times.
need to pay more close attention here, Stephen.
6 times. I think the number, and I don't get into trouble, but I was listening to a research call, doing some research, and I think the number is in PG&E territory. They've raised their rates on average 8% every year since 2018. They've doubled in the past 8 years. It's just when you start realizing how much you're paying. So I like people to understand, once again, misconceptions and what the value proposition is. This is how much you're paying already. You have an opportunity to pay less and save the difference. So, getting back to the similarities of what a potential solar and battery system on your house would mean, when you have your relationship with your utility company, they own and operate all the equipment, right? Or whatever it takes to produce the electricity and get it to your house. They own it, and you just use the electricity that you use. Same thing for a solar and battery system. The Depending on how it works, there are different ways we can get into that also. But if you just compare what a power purchase agreement with a utility company versus a power purchase agreement with your solar company means, it's very similar. The solar panels can be put on your roof at zero cost to you up front, cash flow positive from day one. And now instead of paying what you're paying to your utility company, the rate is less and you start saving money from day one. So it's the question is very simple. Would you like to continue to pay your utility company whatever they want to charge you? That's fine. Or would you like to pay less with solar panels and a battery system on your house? That's it. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and I saw you outlined this in your book, and that's what got my attention. There's another word in your description that got my attention: predictable.
Yes.
And it made me stop and think, like, yeah, you're right. This is very unpredictable. I don't know what to expect, though it's never going to go down. I know I can expect it to go up. But other than that, I don't know how much it's going to go up and how erratic that's going to be. And that's tough when you're budgeting and planning your finances.
I
So
forgive me for not having the number in front of me. I just was looking it up yesterday, but the number of Americans and the number of Californians who are behind in payments in there for the utility payments is staggering. I
mhm.
think it's about I think it's 25-30%, but I know it's at least 20%, but it's higher than that. It is frightening. And here's a question for everybody. Do we think that electricity usage is going to increase or decrease?
Going up.
Yeah. So it's a very, it's a long answer to your simple questions. I could have answered with just one sentence, is you pay less for what you're already paying right now. But yeah, it's a very simple concept, but there are a lot of hurdles to get to having somebody receive this information with an open mind and open heart. That's really what I get paid for, not for conversations like these or writing books or definitely not selling books, but it's just being patient enough to build some credibility and trust so that someone will at least be able to have a conversation with an open mind and open heart so they can make their own decision.
Okay, so what I hear you saying, and I asked you what's the value proposition, is I'm going to save money. That's pretty easy. But the way I'm going to do it is instead of having an agreement with the power company, I'm going to have an agreement with myself. Like, tell me a little bit more about how we figure that out, like exactly what it is, because it sounds too good to be true, Stephen. And me being skeptical, I always want to know what exactly are you laying out here. Tell me about the process when you work with somebody. How do you do the math on that so that I believe that it makes sense?
Well, I'm going to say things that you'll probably never hear another solar and battery professional say. And I'll start out by saying, just to correct a minor thing you threw in there as a throwaway line, solar's not right for everybody.
Hmm.
And I understand that. So I'm not saying that every single person who does their due diligence is going to come to the decision that they should upgrade to solar. I'm not saying that because it's not the case. Whether it's location, whether it's the type of roof you have, whether it's how much electricity you use, whether it's if you're going to be moving out in the next, year, there are a lot of factors. How much sunlight you get, all shade, your all that stuff plays a key role in whether or not it makes sense. If it makes sense, once again, the question is, do you have the opportunity to pay less than what you're paying right now? So I just want to make sure because it's so easy to assume, and most solar professionals, and it's good to believe in what you're doing, will think and especially say that it's right for everybody, that everybody should make sense. It isn't. Another, I shouldn't even put this into the universe. I'm not a fan of anybody who says it's a no-brainer because that implies a lot of things. I won't go into the details, but it just implies it's not a no-brainer because everybody's situation is different, and I just want to respect everybody. Where sometimes it makes sense and sometimes it doesn't. So forgive me. Ask me that question again, but I really want to make that point before we
No,
move.
that I already trust you more just hearing you say that. Many sales professionals won't honestly admit that. They're just trying to make a deal happen, right?
Right,
And
right.
here you're saying this may not be right for you. And again, reading in your book, you explain some of the reasons why. And I encourage everybody who's watching this to read the book because it'll lay it out for you. Today we're just getting through some of the highlights here. But what I was going for before in my previous question was, what's the process like? How do you work with me? Is this how long does it take? What do I have to do? Can you just lay out some of the key steps and
Absolutely,
how you may
absolutely.
be different than the door knocking solar bro you told me about?
Well, I'm not in a hurry. So a person who knocks on your door, once again, typically not from your neighborhood, oftentimes not from your state. They swarm in the neighborhoods, especially during the summer times, and each one of them will typically knock on at least 100 doors a day. And their job is not to take that homeowner through the entire process. Their primary, if not sole job, is just to get an appointment for the closer, one call closer, who will come behind them to basically seal the deal. That's, once again, completely different from the way that I do it, which is I know that life and business is all about timing. So, first of all, it's building that relationship of credibility and trust, and then seeing if somebody is open to having a conversation, seeing if somebody is open to at least getting some information. Now, once the person says, okay, Stephen, been thinking about it, let's what can you tell me? How much what's the number one question? What's the number one question that every homeowner has? We didn't, what do you call it? Practice this. What's the number one question people have about solar?
How much money do I have to spend up front?
How much does it cost?
Yeah.
And nobody wants to hear this answer, but I don't know until we run the numbers because everybody's situation is different for a lot of the reasons I've already shared. So here's the process of the way it should work in my mind, the way it should work. First and foremost, you need to have an initial conversation to really get to know each other a little bit. Why is building rapport so important? It's important because you want the situation to feel comfortable, but you also want to be able to receive accurate information. I'm going to have to ask some maybe personal questions. How long have you been living in the house? Are you going to be moving sometime soon? Are kids moving in or out? What type of vehicles you drive? When do you use electricity? I need some basic information so that we can together run the numbers. So, what information do I need? Basically, three pieces of information. I need to know how much electricity you use on average. And the way that I do it is I get them to send me the last 12 months of their utility bills. Why 12? Well, you want to get a trend because, the days are starting to get longer again and, it's going to rain or not rain. You have to look at a longer period of time because it's extremely important to get what the average is over a 12-month period of time. Once you have that track record, you can base a lot of things. So I need to know how much electricity they're being, using, but also how much they're being charged. And that information only comes on the utility bill. Now, depending on the utility company, some of them are forthcoming and will give you all the information. Some of them even give you a graph that shows you the last 12 months, at least, graphically. But I don't want to guess. So I want to see the actual bill. So I need 12 months worth of utility bills. I also need to know the age and condition of their roof because this is something that's going to be on your roof for at least 20, 25 years. And personally, I'm not going to put a solar panel and set up a battery system to be on a roof that needs any type of repair or replacement in the next couple decades. I can't do that in good conscience because it's costly. And guess who pays for that cost? The homeowner.
Mhm.
So I want to make sure how much they're using. So I get the utility bill and the age and condition of the roof. And also, I want a picture or a couple of pictures of their main electrical box. Now, I'm not an electrician, but I know the information that I need. It's important to see what slots are available, the amp of the main breaker. You need to know if you can actually plug things in without doing any upgrades or if it's good to go. So basically, with those three pieces of information, the amount of electricity, utility bill, your age and condition of your roof, and the photos of your electrical panel, now I can go back and do some homework. With my engineering team, we put together something called an energy savings report. And that will show them a lot of information they don't really know, which is how much they're using on average, which months are peak, how much they're being charged in their rate. Not everybody knows even what their monthly bill average is. If you ask them, they often give you the wrong answer. So part of getting the utility bills is also to verify what the homeowner thinks they're paying, and most times it's different because they just think about either the average or the low month or the high month or whatever. So that's the piece of information. So we come back with an energy savings report, and it'll show them the information. Now with that, we'll also create a design. So obviously I have the address, we have our, utilities and resources to be able to have satellite visions of the roof so we can see how many solar panels is necessary to install on a homeowner's roof in order to generate enough electricity so that they don't have to rely on the grid or the utility company. The term you'll often hear is offset. You want to offset the amount of electricity that they're using from the utility company and have it produced by the good old sun. And then we walk them through what it would take to make that happen, what their rate that they're already committed to paying, which is continuing to go up, how much that rate would be if they did it with the solar panel. The too good to be true part that you talked about, which is I'll definitely um, where I was before I got into this proud profession is you mean to tell me that for $0 out of pocket, you're going to come to my house, put this massive system on my house, attach some batteries on the side. I don't pay you anything up front, and I start saving money from day one? Yeah, that's kind of the way it works. So it does sound too good to be true, but it is what it is. And solar's, has been around for decades,
Mhm.
and it's going to be around for a lot longer. So I might have been in the weeds, but that's really the process. You typically have an initial conversation, and then you get three pieces of information. That solar professional, hopefully is licensed, goes back and creates a report that shows what a system would look like, how much electricity it would produce, and how much money you could save.
So if I'm working with somebody who's not asking me those questions, I'm probably in for some expensive surprises, right?
They're guessing. They're
Yeah.
guessing. And once again, there are some utility companies where the bill is a little more detailed than what we see in our PG&E bills. But still, I don't want to use software to guess how much electricity someone has used over the last 12 months if I can just go straight to the source.
Hmm.
And if they're not asking the right question, as simple as, you guys have a pool in the back, There's no water in it right now. You plan on ever using it again? Because that could make a huge difference in the amount of electricity they'll be using. Are you going to get an electric vehicle anytime soon? Are you going to start changing over your gas appliances to
Mm,
electricity? Those are
yeah.
questions. Are the kids getting ready to move out? How old are your kids? Because well, they might be moving out for college. How old are they? They might be moving back. There's a lot of questions that you you just have to be patient enough and professional enough to ask enough questions so you can get a clear picture of the situation so that you can build the proper system, not only for now, but for the future.
Awesome. Okay, that's what I was hoping for. Thank you for that explanation. And we're getting into now the lightning round where I'm going to dive a little deeper into
Okay,
some questions, looking for just some short answers. Again, the long answers are in the books if you're going to read it, but you give me some of the highlights, the things that people should know.
absolutely.
First is batteries. Batteries are changing the game, right? How so?
Well, and this is another one of those, it depends on where you are questions. I'm in California. The book that I wrote, Residential Solar and Battery, California Homeowners Guide, that is specifically for the California market. And it's if this is not your situation now, it's a potential glimpse in the future because because of the size of California, because of things that we've done traditionally for energy, a lot of the utility companies across the country continue to look toward California as where things are going. So I don't want to go into the weeds, but I do have to give you very brief context. Everything changed with regards to battery usage April of 2023. That's when things transformed from what's called net metering 2.0 to net metering 3.0. So basic concepts. The sun is shining when it shines. It hits the solar panels. You capture the electricity. You're using the electricity that's being generated at the time to run the loads in your house. Right now, the sun is out. I have a load in the dryer and I have a load in the washing machine. Right now, it's being done completely independent of PG&E because we have solar panels on the roof. So what's happening is you're generating electricity. You are rarely, if ever, where you're supposed to be with regards to using the electricity your solar panels are generating. So before 2023, utilities companies such as PG&E would give you full retail credit for the electricity that you sent back to the grid. Because anything that you're not using at the moment is excess electricity. It has to go somewhere. It's sent back to the grid, and PG&E and utility companies like it would give the homeowner full retail credit. So when the sun goes down and there's no longer electricity being generated by your panels, you could use the grid almost like a virtual battery. You could use your retail credits during the nighttime so that you'd still have maybe zero or a very, very small bill. They changed that. Won't go into the details on why. Not all the reasons are bad. That's just the business decisions that they made. Now, instead of giving you dollar for dollar, it's closer to 5, 10 cents per dollar. And that's being generous. So you're giving back electricity at retail. And they're actually, I'm sorry, but they give you wholesale credits for the electricity you're giving it, and they go back and charge you full retail price for the electricity that you use in the evening time. So starting in April of
Hmm.
2023, if you didn't have batteries for a new system being installed, you would still have a significant electricity bill. So it just didn't make sense. So starting from that time, it literally flipped. It was maybe 80%, 20% as far as solar only versus solar and battery. And now it's pretty much flipped where in California and in areas where we call net metering 3.0 or NEM 3.0 areas, it's battery or it probably doesn't make sense to get solar at all. So that's why the environment has changed. In certain markets, you have to have solar and battery for it to make sense.
Okay, and of course, me thinking battery. Oh, maybe I don't need to have a gas powered generator when the storm knocks out our power, or I mean, California. Everybody's heard about this. We have brownouts. We can't even get electricity, right? So with it going on and off like that, does the battery provide enough backup for me to like not feel any pain from blackouts?
Well, here's an important distinction to make. And I'm here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and in the past 2 weeks, San Francisco has had two major outages. Um, uh, um, you know, Thousands and thousands of homeowners who did not have solar and battery were without electricity for some of them for days. So it is something that happens not just in certain areas. I mean, it's happening more and more all over the country. So the distinction I want to make sure that people understand, the term battery storage is different from the term battery backup. So yes, any excess electricity that your house is not using at the time that the electricity is generated, instead of going back to the grid, the first thing it does is it charges your battery. It fills up your battery.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the sun goes down, or when the clouds come out, or when it starts raining, you're able to pull from the battery instead of pulling from the grid. That's your battery storage. Battery backup means that if the grid goes down for whatever reason, the San Francisco issue, the first one was a fire at some type of a substation, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be the heavy rain, or it could be for whatever reason, a fire, it could be, whatever it is. So battery backup means, let's get back to the storage just for a minute. If you're only set up for battery storage, when the grid goes down, your electricity goes down also at your house, even though you have solar that could produce electricity for your house. Why is that? Because with excess electricity going back to the grid, that's extremely dangerous for those hardworking utility workers who come out and fix the lines for everybody else. So
Ah,
it has to be a specific type of a setup for it to be a closed system so that those houses are not sending electricity back to the grid. So there's a distinction. So if you're set up properly for solar and battery backup, storage and backup, then during all the outages, you become your neighbor's best friend.
right.
Yes,
Parties at your house.
you're literally the only house that has electricity when everybody else is in the dark.
I'm so glad I asked you this. Stephen, you're educating me on some things that, you know, I should have asked the question, but not just anyone. I'm glad you and and the other thing you talked about in the book, and we've talked enough about PG&E, but like any lawsuit they get or storm related, having to upgrade their systems, all that stuff's going to come back into higher prices and all that. So we know the problem. I'm interested even more in the solution now. So get to me some of these again quick hit answers on, is free really free? Like when I see an advertisement, it says free solar. Come on, what does that really mean?
If there's one thing you can take away from this conversation, if anybody says that solar's free, run in the opposite direction. They cannot be trusted. It's not true.
You mean free
Means,
up front? Is that
well, once again, I'm very careful in the words that I use because I believe they have power and people will take them for what you're saying. You may have good intentions, you might, but if you say that something is free, that's completely different from saying you have zero money out of pocket up front. A typical solar system is probably going to be somewhere between 15 and maybe $30,000 as far as the cost of the system over the lifetime. But once again, you're comparing that to whatever you're spending for PG&E. And if you can have it start $0 out of pocket up front and your cash flow positive from day one, you're just going to be saving over the period of time. So you're paying less than what you'd be paying normally. So hopefully that answers your question.
absolutely awesome? Okay, here's some others I made notes about.
Okay.
Uh,
Great questions, by the way.
hey,
Thank you.
so once I decide to do it, right? I'm going to own this solar system. I'm going to go for it. How long does it take to get installed? Do you have a typical range? And is it a quick thing or does it take months?
The entire process from sitting down with a homeowner to having what we call power, permission to operate, it could take anywhere from 2 to 6 months. And here's the reason why. There are a lot of things involved in transitioning or upgrading to solar. And here's the process. And as I know we're in the fast round, but you asked me a very detailed question, and I do want people to at least understand the process without going into great detail. You say, sounds great. I'd like to save this money. Let's go. We look at the paperwork, we figure that out, and definitely the details of the contract. And I go into great detail on what's in a typical contract in the book. So we're not going to go into detail with that right now. But let's just say we're all signed out. We're good to go. Great. What happens next? We schedule what's called a site survey. Someone is physically going to come out to your house and look around. And it's a long checklist of what they need to see, but basically they need to confirm the condition of the roof, check where the location of the panels are going to go, where the battery is going to go, and checking the appliances to make sure that everything is up front with regards to what's electricity and not. And they just check off to make sure that everything is the way it's supposed to be from the conversations. So we do the site survey. It includes checking the electrical panel to make sure that everything is good there and we don't get any surprises. So once the site survey is complete, now we have all the information to go back and create the plans. So we have the site survey that needs to be scheduled. Who knows, might take a week, couple of weeks, depending on the schedule. Then we go back and make the plans themselves and the details, the permit ready plans. Then we have to submit those initial plans to the powers that be for the initial permits. Permitting takes time. And permitting, the installer, the solar company, the homeowner has zero control of that other than to, follow up on a regular basis. But we have to wait. So that's a waiting game. That could take several weeks. Once you get the permits back, then now you can schedule the actual installation. Installation, depending on your backup, could take a few weeks. The installation of the solar system itself, solar and battery system itself, takes the least amount of time, maybe 1 to 3 days, depending on the size and complexity of the system itself. Once it's installed, now you have to go back and get some more permits because you get the final permits for what you said you're going to do to confirm that's what you actually did. That can take several weeks, possibly sometimes up to a month. Once you get the final permit approved, you still need to receive something called permission to operate. And that's the final go ahead from the utility company that you can switch over and turn on your power and start generating your own power and have your own energy independence. And that could take a while. So that entire process, when all the stars align, it can go extremely quickly. Some systems from, signing the contract to permission to operate has happened in less than a month, but it also has taken, 4 or 6 months just because of the process and whatever utility company and permits and that has to happen. So that's the process itself.
And
It's Go ahead.
yeah, I appreciate you not oversimplifying or overpromising. I mean, you're saying, hey, there's some work to do here, but I like the honest approach that you're going to walk us through every step of the way. Are there any other red flags that I should be thinking about or concerned about that I haven't asked you about yet?
Well, I mean, the biggest red flag is who you listen to, who you're getting your information from. The red flags are paying close attention to what they're actually saying. They start saying things are free, just run. Because
Mhm.
even if so often the people who are giving you the information believe what they're telling you because that's how they were trained. So I give them a little bit of grace, a little bit, but if they're giving a homeowner bad information and it's going to affect the next 25 years of their finances, I think that's extremely important. So the biggest thing is just to make sure. The red flag is beware of who you get your information from. So doing due diligence and referrals are also always, very, very good. But that's really the most important thing is pay attention to what they're saying and call them on it. Would you'd be surprised to realize how few I hate to call them solar professionals, but how few solar reps have read the contract that they're asking you to sign? That's all I'll say about that. So
Well,
a good test, especially if you're paying attention, ask the person talking to you, have you ever read the actual what have you ever read the actual contract? Pay attention to the reaction. It's very funny.
well, I enjoy getting my information from you. And now there's a book about it. Anybody get the book? And that information will be posted wherever this video is posted,
Absolutely.
as well
Absolutely.
as how to get in touch with you and have this conversation you've been talking about. It's just a low pressure educational conversation. I'm going to come ready with 12 months of bills, all the things you're asking for, but that's really a simple way to begin. And I'm going to give you one more chance here. We're almost out of time, Stephen. 30 seconds. I want you to look into the camera and talk to that person who's been thinking about solar for years, if not decades. What would you like to say to them to close up the show today?
The biggest challenge and invitation I have for people is simply get enough information to make an educated decision on whether it makes sense to possibly upgrade to solar now or sometime in the future. And based on information, what I love about the book that I have written that will be available audio and digital and in a few hard copies. My goal to have a lot of hard copies, but if some people do like to have something in their hands, is take them from not knowing to knowing and give them the information to answer the majority of the questions they would have without having to talk to somebody like me or especially someone knocking on the door.
Right. And the name of the book is Residential Solar and Battery, a California Homeowner's Guide. I'm in California. I read it. It's worthwhile. And Stephen, thank you so much for the conversation today. And best of luck to you out there helping people reduce their costs and their grief with their energy. So thanks so much. Have a great day.
Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much for your time, allowing me to be on your platform. And the last thing I'll say to you and to the world, something like to say, solar's not perfect, but it's better than PG&E.
Boom. There's the bumper sticker. Thank you, Stephen. Appreciate you
Thanks,
being
David.
on
Thank
today.
you. Thank you so much.